Whether it's the cars, architecture, or even fashion, everything seems to be getting quite uglier. What is up, guys? First, I would like to focus on cars, which every day get more predictable, boring, and ugly. Whenever I look at those old-timers, I can't help but ask myself why cars cannot be beautiful the way they used to be. Designers were coming up with some truly marvelous-looking car exteriors. This was when cars were made by human hand, when experimenting with cars' design was not constrained by any vehicle emission standard, unlike today when population became more aware of global warming. Yeah, now blame it all on poor cars. During the 1950s American dream, a luxurious, comfy, and powerful American-made car was a standard for American family and a dream vehicle for anyone around the world. However, in 1973 came the oil crisis, which started the so-called malaise era, and America significantly suffered the consequences. Average gas price in 1970 was only 36 cents, but by 1980 it climbed up all the way to $1.19. European and Asian cars suffered a lot less due to their smaller size. As an example, the engine in American 1970 Cadillac Coupe de Ville was a 472 cubic inch, 7.7 liter V8. Compare that engine with Italian 1970 Fiat 500 that has 30.5 cubic inch and 0.5 liter engine. So basically, pumping gasoline into just one Cadillac Coupe de Ville can fill 15 Fiat 500 car tanks. Americans desperately needed more fuel-efficient cars, so they turned to imports from Europe and Asia. Meanwhile, American car manufacturers were challenged to design cars with increased fuel efficiency, but also safety equipment and lower emissions.
During the past 3 years, we have passed new laws to protect the environment.
Car manufacturers weren't even required to install seat belts until 1964, and it wasn't until 1999 when the airbag became a standard feature. But some of these unavoidable mandates released by the US federal government led to downhill of Americans' vehicle design and overall performance. Introduced bumpers for vehicle safety started messing up with cars' looks. In order for cars to be less harmful for the environment, horsepower was massively reduced, which ultimately led to death of 60s muscle car. On top of that, aerodynamics progressively transformed cars from boxy to curvy design, because the more aerodynamically efficient the car is, the less fuel it will use. That's why they don't make boxy cars anymore. The push for curvy exterior and the set of regulations today reduce experimenting with cars design, which results pretty much boring and predictable looks. I know that modern cars have never been more safer and advanced, but their physical beauty pays the price. Just take a closer look at the specific identity and the styles these cars once had. Most of these cars looked so beautiful. Compare 1959 Chevrolet Impala with 2021 Impala. I mean, which one catches your attention more? 50 years from now, I don't think anyone will look back at these 2020s cars admiring them the way we admire 1950s cars now. Remember how cars used to be painted in a variety of colors, as opposed to now when almost all the cars are gray, black, or white. Interestingly, even though design aesthetics has changed over the years, American car manufacturers actually stayed loyal to the quote, "bigger is better." With the exemption of smaller compact vehicles pushed by the 70s oil crisis and vehicle regulations, American automobile industry designs even bigger cars today than in the 1970s. In fact, top 3 best-selling American cars in 2022 were all pickup trucks. Yeah, screw you damn regulations, you ain't taking our size. In fact, we'll just get bigger. Architecture, the second victim of ugliness, which took effect already in the earliest days of modernism. But recently, it got much worse. Buildings are starting to look like they're being built by some alien civilization from different galaxy. What caused this shift from historical buildings filled with decorative details to the modern buildings looking soulless and made entirely out of glass? Just look what happened to Manhattan. Skyscrapers are being built like some kid made a mess with Legos. It seems that only purpose of each new skyscraper is just getting taller than the previous one. In the 90s, at least you had Twin Towers of the World Trade Center standing out from the background, and also Empire State Building. While nowadays there's nothing that catches your attention that much. Entire skyline is becoming a mess, perfectly capturing billionaires fighting for space where they plant another massive shadow over Central Park. If you take a trip to any European city, whether it's Dubrovnik in Croatia or Rome in Italy, you will see how buildings strived for the maximum beauty back then. But you also get a sense of sort of a repetitive architecture, nothing provocatively screaming, look at me, and that's because it wasn't until the modernism in the 20th century when architects started expressing their individuality and their own ideas through architecture. Popular quote took shape, how beauty is in the eye of beholder. I believe how beauty standard is non-existing and how there is no building that is really ugly. Expression of individual identity and conformity drastically changed fashion as well. By looking at the footage from the 1950s, people used to follow an actual dressing standard back then. Women were expected to wear dresses with full skirts, stockings, and perhaps high heels. Men were wearing leather shoes, coats, and suits with ties, and a hat was a must-have. If these people saw a man with tattoos all over his body, wearing ripped skinny jeans or rapper's necklace, people would be shocked seeing that man walking down the street into the neighborhood. Or if a half-naked teenage girl wearing shorts walked the streets in the 1950s straight out of the OnlyFans, it will be all over news on television.
Makeup and costumes were bizarre. No one was injured.
Parents would be arrested and the girl would be sent to orphanage. I mean, even if people were poor back then, they still sort of cared trying to look the best in the public places. What happened?
This cannot be real, okay?